You know, as I and we look around this beautiful sanctuary, this place of refuge, we are presented with this beautiful tapestry of hope, of peace. Stained glass, the tabernacle, all the candles lit, these beautiful paintings and frescoes, the beauty of the wood trusses, the baptismal font, and statues of saints whose lives were filled with faith. We come and we are reassured that God's love is alive here. Truly, a peaceful scene presents itself for us here each Sunday, every weekend, stoking our emotions and our imagination, making us feel that our world and our lives go by day, filled with nothing but happy, happy, joy, joy. When here we can feel reassured that the world we live in is a world filled with no reason to fear, a world where faith in a loving God comes easily and quite naturally when we are here. Yet I also know myself quite well, and although I long for such a world as felt here, one of peace and of joy and of community, of every hope, I wonder if I can step outside the boat that is this place, this sanctuary, this place of refuge and comfort. For I know just outside of these four walls of this ship of love called St. Francis Cabrini, my life and our lives are not always that safe. That sometimes to live this life, to have faith in a God who loves and cares and who forgives can be quite challenging at times. And so this fear keeps us from taking risks at times, to be about having and to sharing God's divine love with our sisters and brothers, and in a world that so desperately needs that love. We would rather stay in that boat and close our eyes to the storms of injustice that are all around us. We would rather lay comfortably in our beds than do something about the violence and the hatred that lives still in our governments and on our streets and in our hearts. We all find at times that it's just easier to stay safely here, in our boats, in our refuge, found in this sanctuary. The problem is that there is, regarding our faith, a life after Sunday. We find it hard to step out of that boat into the stormy, strong winds of life that buffet us and chill us to the quick. And then despite that, believe and have faith that we could ever make a difference for the good, make a difference for God, make a difference for Christ out there in the world. And I'm including myself here in this royal we. For we have face or will face the strong winds of change in life and the death of loved ones, the loss of jobs in financially troubling times, or the appearance of suddenly a life-altering disease or disability that knocks the breath out of us. Yet faith calls us, because of these life-sucking realities, it calls us to get out of that boat and bring to this hurting world and to our hurting hearts mercy and love and care and compassion to make a difference for God. We faced or we will face the earthquakes of life, the injustices and the pain and the violence and the hatred and the oppression in this world that will shake us to our core, of the political struggles of Russia and the Ukraine, or between the U.S. and North Korea or China, or the ever-present reality of gun violence here in the States, or the environmental devastation of brush fires in Hawaii, or smoke-laden forest fires from Canada, the unfortunate divisive nature of racism and gender inequalities, and so on, and so on, and sadly so on. We need to have faith and get out of that boat and make a difference, to make a difference for God. There is a life in this world after Sunday. We have been hurt by power struggles at work, had or will have our hearts broken, suffered abuse at the hands of another, find those we love victims of violence, and for some of us, fear where our next meal may come from, or how the bills are going to be paid. And in such a world as this, how is it that we who claim to be people of God, who claim to be Christ's followers, how is it that we have any faith at all? We are a people of faith because we have, during these times and here in this place of refuge, we have opened our ears and our hearts to it and heard that whisper of God's love calling out to us, present in our lives, every single moment of our lives, every day. And so, feeling that love in our hearts, we are called to do something about that. We have seen the power of God's love and how that power of God's love, what it has for our lives. Making those lives burn not with a power that's hell-bent on destruction, but with the very truth of faith that God's love makes a difference. And the truth of the faith and the truth that God's whispering love is a real reality in our lives that calls all of us, each one of us, myself included, to make this world a more just and a more compassionate place. We have faith, for in Jesus Christ, for in him we truly do have a sure and a constant companion who calms the storms and the tempests of all of our lives. And we also have a vast collection of witnesses that we hear every Sunday, every time we are here. Witnesses from Scripture like Elijah and St. Paul and Peter, who we heard this evening, as well as hosts of contemporary witnesses in our own lives. Our very sisters and brothers sitting here amongst us right now, present in our lives, who attest to the truth of God's love and do make a difference in this world. We all know people who believe no matter what happens in their lives in the truth that God's love endures forever, and who, in their compassion, have given life to us and made a positive difference in our own lives and in this world with their healing power of faith. So in the end, how long has it been since any of us have taken a risk to love? Taken a risk that seems impossible to our human understanding, to risk it all for God because we have been so loved by this God, to make a difference just based on our faith alone. Sometimes we, like Elijah, like Saints Paul and Peter, when the storms come a-knocking, we sometimes underestimate God's power to be with us, be it in that whispering presence or the power that could even empower us, each one of us, every single one of us, to heal the blind, to set captives free, to protect the marginalized. Yes, there are storms that blow in life, fires that rage out of control, and winds that toss our fragile planet and our own fragile lives. So we bring the storms of our life, though, every single time we come here, every weekend, every time we gather to worship, so we can again find the peace of Christ always with us in our hearts and in one another, and in a God who is united with us so deeply and so intimately. So may we find a friend then in Elijah who had a theophany of God in the smallest of whispers, that God was not in the earthquakes of life, in the fires of life, or in the storms and the heavy winds of life, but was with him always so that he could, and we through him, find our own prophetic faith. Get out of the boat. There is a life after Sunday. So may we find a friend in St. Paul who, despite his own doubts and fears, says that the one God of the Israelites, our spiritual forebears, is the same God in Jesus. And so we share, despite our own persecutions, that this God is indeed a God of great promise and is indeed for all people of God, for every person on this planet. Get out of the boat. May we find strength in St. Peter, who had the courage to get out of that darn boat in the first place, and who Jesus trusted with a many great thing. Like St. Peter and with Christ, we are more powerful for the good than we could ever imagine. We are more powerful for the good than we could ever imagine. There is more than life after Sunday. So we too can mature in faith only if we are patient and only if we are humble enough to ask for help while we walk on the waters of our own lives. With such faith, we will not sink. Do not let fear keep us apart, God is saying. He calls us to get out of the boat. So as we leave here this evening and glory in God's goodness this beautiful summer night, may we feel the truth that indeed nothing can separate us from a love so deep and so true. There is a life after Sunday. And may we always ask God to imbue us with a love that knows no bounds. May we ask for the gift to discern how to best love ourselves as well as each and every person that comes our way. For when that happens, when love is given and shared out of the courage of our own prophetic witness, God's blessing and love will look down on us forever grateful. And finally, may God bless us all with the strength and the grace of leaving our fears behind, whatever those fears may be, whatever fears we may have, and really believe and really trust in God's love for each one of us, and how special and unique and powerful for the good that we all are, and get out of that darn boat, and then make God's justice sing. Sing, and sing at last.